Hello and welcome to Entirely English. Today we are doing our first proper installment of British manners.
Manners maketh man. Do you know what that means? Then let me teach you a lesson.
And I thought the first one we should do is meeting and greeting. There are various traditions and etiquette with meeting and greeting people. Let's start with a general meeting. Now, meeting somebody will always depend on your relationship with that person, how well you know them, and your status with regards to them. Now let's look at meeting a new person. When you're introduced to somebody, the rule of thumb is to address them as they are introduced to you. So if you're at a conference or a party or something like that, and your friend says, Mike, I'd like you to meet Mr. Wilkins, you will then address him as Mr. Wilkins. You say, nice to meet you, Mr. Wilkins. Right? If you're introduced to this person as Mike, I'd like you to meet Jessica, then you'd say, hello, Jessica, nice to meet you. So you always follow the way you're introduced to that person. You will often find in these situations when somebody says, Mike, I'd like you to meet Mr. Wilkins, you say, hello, Mr. Wilkins. That person might very well say, oh, please call me Tim. So then you know what you should address them. If they say, nice to meet you too, then that is kind of underlying the fact that he wants to be addressed by his full title. If you're not sure, if you think there should be some room for maneuver on that, use the name again. Say, how are you enjoying the party, Mr. Wilkins? And this will either prompt him to say, oh, please call me Tim, or he will answer, oh, it's very, very nice. In which case you will continue to address him as Mr. Wilkins. And in these situations, it's always correct to use hello. Never hi, howdy, whatcha, sup, any of those sort of things. Always hello when you're first meeting somebody. And also, if you're sitting down when the person, say at a party, is brought over and said, Mike, I'd like you to meet, always stand up. Always stand up and hold out your hand. But we'll come to handshakes in a moment. Let's continue with our verbal greeting. So when is it okay to use hi, hey, whatcha, those sort of phrases? Well, it depends on your social status and, as I said at the beginning, how well you know that person. So when I might meet my brother, I would say, hey, Steve. You know? When I meet my neighbor or see my neighbor outside, I might call, all right, Marco. So it depends on your relationship with that person. I've mentioned before that I watch some of these reaction videos, and I've heard a couple of Americans say they don't understand why we would say all right, which is strange. You know, they say it's like, are you telling me that there's something wrong, that I look ill? No, it's just a greeting. All right, is everything all right? How's things? All right. It's the same as them saying sup, which is an abbreviation of what's up, which actually in English is a bit strange, because if you say to somebody what's up, it sounds like they look upset. Why are you frowning? Why are you crying? What's up? So that's even more bizarre than saying all right. Everything all right with you? All right? All right. All right, so let's get back to the handshake. Handshake should always be firm, right? When you grasp their hand, it should be firm, a good hold. Don't try to grind their knuckles or crush their fingers. It's just like holding a suitcase. It's that sort of strength. You're just holding, you're not crushing. And don't do one of those limp hello. You know, it's gross, it's disgusting, and it separates you from that person. They're immediately going to be taken aback from you. And a good thing to do is when you go to shake their hand, wipe your hand subtly on your leg or something before, hi. That way you get rid of any dampness or any chill that's on your hand. Because there's nothing worse than taking somebody's hand, especially if it's a limp one, and having that wet feeling. You immediately want to wipe it off yourself. So just a little hi. Bit like the cowboys drawing the gun. Get your hand out there. And personal space is important. You should not step more than an arm's length from that person. If you get too close, it's invasive. It makes people uncomfortable. I used to know somebody who'd get right in my face when he was talking to me. He wasn't being aggressive, but it was really uncomfortable. Respect people's personal space. Now, handshakes are a bit strange. There's some where a person takes a hand and then puts their other hand on top. And it's a bit of a dominating thing. It's like saying, I'm in charge. I have control. Worse than that is, I think I've seen Donald Trump do this, is when you shake the hand and then put your hand on their shoulder. Now, it might be meant as a friendly gesture, but it's a bit like patting the head of a child. It's saying, I am superior to you. But be careful of your body language. Always stay that distance apart and smile. Make eye contact and smile. Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. And the how are you? I have mentioned this in a previous video. I'll put the link up there. How are you? Arthur Guterman, an American poet, supposedly, said, don't tell your friends about your indigestion. How are you is a greeting, not a question. Well, that might be true for him. It might be true for Americans, but actually in Britain, how are you is a question. You wouldn't go up to somebody and say, how are you? You'd say hello first. You greet first, and then the how are you is a follow-up question. And the response depends, again, on your relationship with the person you're talking to. If it's a business colleague, a neighbor, you might just say, fine, okay, good, bearing up. General statements. Don't lie, Give them a general idea. I'm okay. Okay. Great, fabulous. Life is great. Just won the lottery. But with people you know better, friends, family, you would answer them more in detail. Oh gosh, things are awful at the moment. Oh really? What's wrong? Oh, the dog ran away with the cat and I don't know what to do. Or oh, really good. I've just met this really nice girl. So you share information. How are you is a question. People want to know how you are, how life is treating you. Now I kind of digressed from the handshake there. Handshakes are interesting as well because nowadays the handshake is maybe one or two little bumps. Just hi. Maybe just one or two. Very short, about an inch or 3 centimeters up and down. I know different cultures have different ways of doing things. There's one, I think it's an Asian or African culture, where when they're doing business, they take your hand and they'll continue shaking your hand until you reach an agreement on whatever the deal is you're doing. And they will just shake and shake. It should be an hour. And they won't release the hand until the deal is made. Which is kind of converse to Europeans. We tend to shake hands after the deal is made, and it's again just one or two pumps of the arms. And sometimes, again, depending on your relationship with the person, you might hug, you embrace them. Hi, maybe a friend you haven't seen for a long time, you embrace them. With men, rule is to keep the top part of your body fine, that can touch, but make a kind of pyramid. Keep the bottom part of your body away from the other person. Women have a different way of expressing their emotions, and they can get right in there. They can kiss the cheeks and so forth. And kissing is an interesting one as well. Apparently, back in the sort of Middle Ages, British people did kiss each other when they met, and on the lips. But if you're meeting somebody, for example, from France, offer your hand, shake the hand. They might step in for a kiss, and if they do, let them, and then just follow suit. If they kiss you on the cheek, you make the sound near their cheek. On the cheek is up to you. Sometimes I go for a second one. You just let it go. You know it's their culture. You don't step back and say, what are you doing? Okay. And definitely no wet lips. Again, women are more adept at doing this. They tend to understand, read the body language or the situation very well, and they will automatically know whether they're going in for a kiss on the cheek or an air kiss. You've seen that, darling, where it's kind of false, or a hug or anything like that. Women tend to read the situation better, and there's no strict and firm rules. Women tend to have their own range of etiquette when it comes to that. Again, in Britain, hundreds of years ago, you might meet a lady and you kiss her hand, or just above her knuckles, maybe not actually make contact. I think that became a health and safety thing. But when a man meets a woman, again, in one of these maybe business situations, we tend to shake hands. And handshaking is an interesting thing because, well, in history, the handshake originated from knights meeting each other. And they'd ride towards each other on the road, and they would hold up their right arm to show they had no sword in it. And they'd ride towards each other and then clasp their hands, and it meant this was a peaceful meeting. Sometimes they'd clasp arms. Maybe it began with clasping arms and then went to the hands. But that was part of the greeting to say we are at peace with each other. And I found this interesting when I was in Ukraine. So I lived in Ukraine for 2 years before the war. And I went to our office there when I was working for a company in Ukraine. And I went in and everybody was shaking hands, very big handshakers in Ukraine, shook hands all round. And then we had a coffee and a chat. And then I went out and I bought some wine. And when I came back, everybody wanted to shake hands again. And because I had this cultural awareness, or this historical awareness of the knights, I had this momentary thought, did they think I'd gone to get a sword? So, yeah, handshaking is very interesting. And of course, we all generally shake hands with the right hand, because right hand is the dominant hand in most of society. What else can I say about meeting and greeting? New people, again, always with a smile or half smile, lock eyes. With friends, acquaintances, you develop your own meetings. You might do one of those strange handshakes. So we don't worry about that when it comes to etiquette. People you know well. You might, if you're British, you might use insulting names for them. You know, how you doing, fatso? It depends on your relationship. But the important thing to know is when meeting and greeting somebody new, do follow the rules. If you're meeting a British person, don't invade their personal space. Stay that meter or so apart. Hold out your hand. Even though we had the coronavirus and that stopped a lot of the handshakes, people still found ways of touching elbows and bumping fists and things like that. But it hasn't killed it off. Handshaking is still a big thing here. So that's the way to greet somebody. Okay, so that's all I want to mention about meeting and greeting. I might have missed some things there. If you think there's something I missed, pop it down in the comments below and I'll try to answer it. If you're interested in taking English lessons, do check my information in the details. You'll find my contact details there. And we'll be back for the next part of our manners within the week. All right, so meeting and greeting, and now farewell, goodbye. Hope to see you again soon. Ciao.